Friends, I just pressed the Let's Go Live button, so let's wait for the stream to fire up all across the fruited plain of the internet. Before we go ahead and get started, we always got to make sure those tubes are working. And of course, it's a Super Tuesday, kind of a Tuesday, so sometimes those tubes get a little clogged. They were a little clogged this morning all across the interwebs, but hopefully they're working. Loud and clear all across the interwebs. It looks like they are working. We're live on Locals. I see YouTube friends over here. Hopefully our Rumble friends are kicking on. Looks like that's good. And Telegram and elsewhere, that means we can go ahead and get started. So let's do it, shall we? Hello, my friends, and welcome back to yet another episode of Watching the Watchers Live, the show that spotlights misconduct involving police, prosecutors, and politicians. My name is Robert Gouveia. I am a criminal defense attorney, and today we're talking about Trump trials. And we've got one that is looming, the Alvin Bragg prosecution out of New York. We're getting into this one because Donald Trump sent over a warning to Bragg. It's an open letter, and he's saying, you know, Bragg, you are right on the cusp of committing prosecutorial misconduct because what you're doing is you are prosecuting one individual named Weisselberg, remember him, the CFO from the Trump organization. He just took a guilty plea, pleaded guilty to perjury. And this is very curious because we also have another witness who's coming up in this trial, who's a star witness, who Alvin Bragg is not prosecuting, which is, of course, Michael Cohen. Michael Cohen is Alvin Bragg's star witness. And so what is seemingly happening here is Alvin is prosecuting Trump witnesses to get guilty convictions to show that that is a perjurer, so that when Trump uses that CFO in his trial as a witness, they're going to say from the government side, sorry, he's a convicted perjurer. So they're taking out Trump's witnesses, right, by getting him to get a conviction and to plead guilty. And then simultaneously, he is not prosecuting Michael Cohen. Michael Cohen's going to be the star witness. He's already been convicted of perjury, but he committed perjury again, admitted it in the trial with Tish James, and Bragg is not prosecuting him. So talk about double standards. Bragg is prosecuting a Trump witness, but not prosecuting a state-friendly witness, and the double standard continues. And so we're going to talk about this. We've also got some of the ripple effects here. They're saying there could be some consequences for this for Trump. That's a media clip. And we also have here Alina, Habba, in the house. And she's going to talk about the underlying case, which of course is the civil fraud case. That's on appeal. And Trump is taking that up to get that order reversed. And he owes a bunch of money on that, according to Tish and Ariola Angeron, aka the NIP, the judge. So all that's coming up. Trump's team sent a nice letter over to Alvin, and they're explaining to Alvin, if you continue down this road, my friend, there's going to be big problems for you, and you're going to be violating your oath of office. Not that they care. All that's coming up. Then we got, in our second segment, 2 new witnesses in the Fani-Wade saga. Oh. And we don't know if the judge is going to accept this or consider it, but he's definitely going to read the motions. Of course. Now, we don't know if he's going to incorporate this into his opinion or not, but definitely all this is coming into the courtroom, and he's at least going to know that it's out there, right? And so here is what we're talking about. A Cobb County prosecutor, her name is Cindi Yeager, and we're hearing from her via David Shafer, who's another co-defendant in this entire case, and he is saying that she knew a lot more about the relationship than Terrence Bradley let on. We know Bradley basically got on the stand and, in my opinion, was very dishonest in his testimony. He knew a lot more about when Fani and Wade started indicting each other. It was all the way back in 2019, not in 2022, as they alleged in their affidavit, aka their lie to the court. So a prosecutor is now willing to talk to the defense to say Fani and Wade lied. Wow. That's a pretty big deal. So we're going to talk about that. We also have a law professor named Manny Arora. He apparently also met with Terrence Bradley quite a bit and knew a lot about the relationship between Fani and Nathan. And this is coming via another co-defendant called Cathy Latham. And so what is happening here, my friends, is the floodgates have been opened. Pandora's box is now cracked. And everybody who's anybody is trying to get away from the blast zone to get out of Fani's giant splash zone, like everybody's like, no, run. And they're all trying, to come out, maybe create some distance here. So, or reveal it, right? The floodgates are up. Okay, she's done. Let's get rid of her. And so people are being honest, and the coming out of the woodwork to now take down the biggest Fani in Fulton County. We also know that Judge McAfee is up for re-election. So as we have multiple layers to this case, the Trump prosecution, then the Fani lies and corruption, we've also got the politics of the whole game here. Of course, 2024 is right around the corner, but Judge McAfee's going to be on the ballot. And so he just launched his campaign website, and we had some questions about the timing on this. Is he going to release his opinion before the voting gets in full swing, or is it going to come after the deadlines to register to run against him, and so on? And so very interesting stuff happening. A former federal prosecutor is now hinting that Wade and Willis might face perjury charges and fraud charges as all this continues to mount. And I think that's a real possibility. If they're going to prosecute Trump people for fraud and for conspiracy, they say good for the goose is good for the gander, as they say. No one's above the law. Yeah. So we're going to see what that looks like with Fani and Willis. Judge Napolitano saying their reputation is so irretrievably damaged, it's done for. And Donald Trump was out responding to this. And so he actually had a minute or two where he was talking about Fani and Nathan and how they indicted each other, all being orchestrated at the behest of the Democrats and the Biden campaign. So we have that coming up. And my friends, tomorrow we are going to be here streaming live bright and early in the morning. So come and join us. Set your calendar, set your alarm clocks if you need one. But 9 a.m. Eastern time is when Ashley Merchant is going to be testifying in front of the Georgia Senate. And that's confirmed Wednesday, March 6th, 9 a.m. at the 450 CAP building, probably Capitol Hill. So we're going to be covering that. We're going to be live streaming it. So come and join us wherever it is you're watching this. It's going to be a lot of fun because there's not going to be Adam Abate jumping up. Objection, objection, objection every 2 seconds. Privilege, privilege. Nope. Sorry, Adam and Fani. It's just going to be free range. So that's 7 o'clock Arizona time, Mountain, 6 o'clock Pacific time. Going to be an early morning, but it's going to be a lot of fun. And then in our last segment today, my friends, we're turning our attention over to Florida because this is pretty interesting. We might get another trial before the election. I doubt it. I mean, I don't think so. But maybe we'll see what Judge Cannon does down there in Florida because some interesting things have been happening. We have Trump's attorney, Tim Parlatore. He hopped on with CNN, his former attorney, Tim Parlatore, who I think is a pretty sharp dude. He came out and he said that the Florida case is the most concerning, right? He says, considering all the things that are going on right now, Florida is probably the most concerning. It's a classified documents case. We're going to take a look at the proposed schedule. Trump's team submitted a proposed schedule. And what's interesting is they've got kind of two dates. They say, well, first of all, this should be pushed way beyond 2024. Like clearly, it's all political. It's all nonsense brought by Joe. But if not, well, how about August, right? I'm like, whoa. How about August? Okay, that's pretty curious. All right, okay. How come? And so we're starting to wonder, if they're kind of thinking they might win this thing, or that a trial in August, which would, of course, would extend into September, October, would all be maybe to Trump's benefit. And so they say, yeah, let's postpone it. But if not, we're kind of ready to go. We'll hear what CNN says, and they've got some reaction, kind of assembling the timelines, all the various political prosecutions that are afoot. And then we'll hear from another Trump former attorney who's called Jim Trusty, also a sharp dude, who's on with Caitlin Collins over at CNN. And so he'll give us some thoughts on this new trial date and what is cooking out there in Florida. And so, my friends, as you can see, we got a lot to get to today. I'm grateful that you are here and with us. It is a Super Tuesday. And so if you're in one of those states, we talked about this morning on our members only morning stream. This morning we do streams in the morning and on Saturdays for our members. We're grateful for our members. And we know that a lot of states are voting today. So if you're on the list, duty calls. We appreciate you voting, of course, and dragging everyone you know to the polls, or at least practicing this, right? We know this is kind of just the primaries, but we want to get our election muscles, exercised. And so we want to get out there and get voting and get ready. When November comes, we're calling everybody, dragging everybody we've ever met to the polls, as long as they're kind of, going to, be in alignment with our ideology. But that's the point. Come and join us, watchingthewatchers.locals.com. Hopefully you're having a beautiful Super Tuesday. And We would love to have you. We do streams in the morning, streams on Saturday, and we have an amazing community. It's really about the people who are in there. It's a ton of fun, and we have a lot of laughs. So come and join us. watchingthewatchers.locals.com. Also, robertgovea.com is where you can get any of the PDFs. We got about 4 of them that we're going through today. So if you want to download any of them, dig in. If you want to grab that one footnote and say, what the heck was that one? Well, that's where you'll get them. robertgovea.com. They're all posted over there. And of course, watcherlodge.com, which is our self-development and our sovereignty community, which is where we've got a lot of fun stuff over there. We still have our survival squad workshop. It's still publicly available if you want to go check that out. And so there's some cool stuff happening there. And we're warming up this month our members only content over there, right? It's going to be a little, it's going to be very cool. So watcherlodge.com, we're having some fun over there. If you want to see some other projects we're working on, that's where it's at. But my friends, without any further ado, it's time to get into this one. And we're starting in New York. Trump and his defense warn Alvin Bragg this trial is right around the corner, looming on the horizon. We know that it is starting just a few weeks from today, and Trump is now telling Bragg that he is on the verge of committing prosecutorial misconduct. His team sent a nice letter over to the New York Manhattan prosecutor's office, and they're explaining that there is a little bit of a discrepancy. They're wondering why, oh why, in New York, are they prosecuting Weisselberg, former Trump CFO, for perjury, when just not too long ago, Michael Cohen was in New York in trial, participating against Trump, taking the stand, testifying, and admitting to committing more perjury, right? Admitting to lying when he lied or took a plea deal for lying, right? So the guy lies all over the place. But the question is, if he lied in open court or admitted he lied in open court, why is Bragg not prosecuting him? Why is Bragg only prosecuting a potential Trump witness with perjury? And so we're going to get more into that story, get some background on it, and get some legal analysis from Alina, Habba, and some others. But of course, let's dive right in to the letter. This is a warning to Alvin Bragg. Todd Blanche sent this over to the New York County District Attorney's Office regarding prosecutorial misconduct. Alvin, concerning Michael Cohen, aka the convicted perjurer. There should be an asterisk by his name every single time, like a steroid user or something. But perjury. And Alan H. Weisselberg, okay, which was Trump's former CFO. And trial is starting very soon on this, and it's a criminal trial for multiple felonies. This is their last-ditch effort. They are working very hard to get Trump a felony conviction before the election, and this is the last one. I mean, we know the J6 case, because that's on appeal, not looking so hot. Willis has been caught indicting Nathan Wade, you know what I mean? And so that trial is probably going away. And Florida, it's classified documents, you know how complicated those can be. And so that might take some time as well. So they accelerated this one. Judge Juan Mercan said, perfect, let's go to trial. And they are here. Now, Trump is saying, you better do something about this case, Alvin. Don't you dare put Michael Cohen, a convicted perjurer, on the stand, they say. Dear Alvin, we write regarding ongoing prosecutorial misconduct, buddy, in connection with the prosecution of President Trump. This is coming in violation of the federal and the state constitutions and, Alvin, your ethical obligations as well. Why? Well, it concerns your simultaneous decisions. One, which of course is to turn a blind eye to the admitted and repeated perjury of your star witness called Michael Cohen, a convicted perjurer, if you didn't know. And 2, vindictive and oppressive pressure and plea negotiations that have led now to a forced guilty plea for 2 counts of perjury for Alan Weisselberg. So Trump's CFO, who's on Team Trump, Alvin goes hard after him, prosecutes him for perjury. It's made up, as we'll see. And then Michael Cohen, who just committed perjury, gets off scot-free. Weird. Now, this conduct by you, Alvin, was obviously part of an effort to impact the outcome of the flawed proceeding by Tish James and Mr. Weisselberg's role in the trial. Now, Weisselberg doesn't appear on any witness lists currently in this case, but Your conscious choice, Alvin, to ignore obvious and the admitted criminal conduct by Cohen, he says I lied, and instead deploy unethical and strong-arm tactics against an innocent man in his late 70s just underscores the conduct of your office. Now, indeed, Alvin, while you waste public resources in a desperate attempt to impede Trump and his ongoing ascent to the White House, looking better every day, in violation of prosecutorial guidelines that prohibit this type of election interference, you regularly and repeatedly allow those guilty of brutal attacks on law enforcement, like illegal aliens, and murderers to roam free around your city. And so this dereliction of duty renders you fully unfit to serve, and it exposes innocent citizens like Mr. Weisselberg to irreparable and life-altering harm. They say, all right, Alvin, let's get into it. They say, today, your office has forced Mr. Weisselberg, a 70-year-old man, late 70s, almost 80, into pleading guilty to non-existent perjury offenses, and you threatened him with years in state prison if he did not succumb to your demands. It happens all the time, okay? Prosecutors come in, they say, well, here's what we have. I mean, it looks like you said this, and you said this in trial, and we have this other statement here, and we think it's a lie. You say, well, I didn't lie. I just meant this, and here I meant that. Well, it's not what we say. And we say this has a different meaning. You intended that this was a lie. He says, I didn't, though. They say, well, since you've already pleaded guilty to another crime, and now you'll be like a repeat offender. And so now, since these are felonies, obviously perjury is a big deal. You lied in a major trial here. So if you do get convicted of these, which of course you will, because this is New York, and everybody who's even remotely associated with Trump is going to get convicted in New York. So why don't we do this? Rather than you going to prison, which is mandatory, by the way, they'll say these are 2 dates of offenses plus this one. So you are mandatory prison, or you can just take this plea deal. We'll just add a little bit more probation to your charge, to your current offense. What do you want to do? He goes, obviously, right? I don't want to spend the rest of my life rotting away in prison with Tish James tweeting about it. So I'll take the deal. Thanks. Happens all the time, all across America, every single day. Probably to people that you know and love too. Prosecutors threaten them because our laws are, oftentimes have mandatory minimums, and they're very difficult to win, especially in a political prosecution like this. What is he going to do? So they force him to plead guilty. Okay, so now when this trial starts, and any references about Weisselberg or Trump's CFO or how the money was moved around, because this is the Cohen case, they'll just turn around and say, oh, who? From the perjurer? Oh, you're going to believe Weisselberg? He pleaded guilty to perjury, right? So they are tarnishing a potential witness, even though apparently he wasn't on the witness list as it stands. So Trump's team continues. As we understand it, your loser prosecutors, my word, presented Weisselberg with an impossible choice. 1, plead guilty to perjury crimes that he did not commit in exchange for another relatively short stint in prison, or face arrest and incarceration, and risk that an unsuccessful effort to fight these unwarranted charges will result in yet another draconian sentence by Judge Juan Merchan. Indeed, to compel a plea today by forcing him to do this on drummed up charges on which a jury would never convict, we understand that you threatened to file a sham indictment against Weisselberg and then to immediately ask Juan Merchan, the judge, to violate him, who's on probation. Oh my gosh, that's even worse. Risking further jail time even though he's in fact innocent of any crime. So Weisselberg is on probation for he pleaded guilty to something else, right? And it was another finance charge, right? They were trying to nail him to say, oh, that parlay that into Trump. But if you're on probation and you commit a new crime, well, that's a huge problem, obviously. You're on probation. You're not supposed to get in trouble again. So it's almost always immediately revocation of your bond or probation. Well, not for probation violations, but it will be something that you could be arrested for and held back into custody. The judge could say, well, you were on probation. I told you not to do it again. You're not getting out this time. And now you got to deal with both crimes, the new crime and a probation violation on the original crime. Because you violated your probation by being charged, like it's a new crime, right? It's a probation violation, theoretically. So it spirals pretty quickly. So they hit him with that. You better take this plea. If not, we're indicting you. And even if you think you're going to win the indictment at a jury, you're still going to jail for a while now. And Juan Merchan might keep you in there because he's Juan Merchan. But again, this happens all the time too. Now, such tactics have no place in our American justice system, and you should be ashamed of yourself and alarmed of this tyrannical conduct. It's like, oh, well, that was their entire thesis. They woke up plotting this. How do we take out more people on Trump's side? We got one attack with Weisselberg. So by contrast, so that's what they did to Allen. Let's talk about what they did to Michael, a convicted perjurer called Cohen. By contrast, Michael Cohen admitted to multiple instances of perjury, and then he committed perjury in open court back during the Tisch trial, including by trying to walk back sworn federal guilty pleas and mischaracterizing his interactions with those federal prosecutors. So Cohen said that he lied to the federal judge, right? He said, no, so you said that you lied to Congress, right? That's why you pleaded guilty. Yeah, I said that, but it's not true. Wait, what? So you lied about admitting to lying. Is that true? Yes. Okay. So you lied about admitting to lying. Are you lying now or not? Nobody can tell. So at the February status conference, back in the Tisch trial, DA Colangelo essentially confirmed that the district attorney, Alvin's office, is not investigating these blatant violations of New York law. In essence, he asserted to Judge Wan that the only appropriate remedy for perjury by Cohen in a New York state proceeding is for Trump to cross-examine Cohen. That's all. And so we appreciate the tip, and we'll be sure to add this to our cross-examination outline near the questions about the gift that the New York attorney's office gave to Cohen by not charging him with the same, quote, crimes charged in the indictment against Trump. So, in other words, Cohen is getting off scot-free, right? He lied. He admitted he lied. He broke the law again in court, and the entire court system, including the judge, are just like, well, cross-examine him. Now, your office, Alvin, warmly embraced Cohen, the liar, and doubled down on this position in February. You opposed Donald Trump's motion in limine, which we covered here, saying in that filing, the DA's office also endorsed this ridiculous finding by Engoron. Remember Engoron, Ariola, aka the Nip? He came out, he said, Michael Cohen told the truth in my courtroom. Then he took his shirt off and was credible at the People versus Trump trial. That's the Tisch trial. Engoron's findings as to Cohen's so-called credibility, they were made despite perjury by Cohen that is more central to the proceedings than the sham trial that Engoron himself facilitated. So Cohen on the stand in the New York trial was like, yeah, I lied. I lied about lying. And Engoron's like, wow, that was really good testimony. So honest and truthful. I love you. The reality is the opposite. Engoron is obviously wrong. But whatever the merit of Engoron's flawed views, if you choose, Alvin, if you choose to put Cohen on this case, that decision is going to have serious legal and ethical consequences for the integrity of these proceedings and for individual prosecutors who would choose to suborn Cohen's perjury. You're going to put him on there and make him lie? The New York rules of professional conduct say you're not supposed to do that. It's prohibited. Saying to do so would be unethical and actually illegal, by the way. And it would also be a clear violation of the DA's, quote, special duty to seek justice, not merely to try to convict. Yeah, but that only applies for people who are not Trump. Now, the inclination, Alvin, of your office to look past the grave problems of Cohen's perjury and his credibility that was suggested in your filing is even more egregious. So he responded to Trump's motion in limine. So Trump said, Michael Cohen, judge, like he should not even be allowed to testify. The dude is like a liar, bona fide. And then they responded and said, well, if you think he's a liar, why don't you just cross-examine him? Just ask him questions about that, which is kind of the normal thing to do, except this dude admits that he lies to federal judges. You know what I'm saying? So it's not really reliable. So they say, you said it's not a problem. We love Michael Cohen. He's honest. Engoron said so, and should be completely unacceptable to anyone who's concerned about the limits of prosecutorial discretion. Now, when considered relative to your office's treatment of Weisselberg, which we're going to talk about below, saying the selective prosecution of Weisselberg, so he gets a fake perjury charge while Cohen does cartwheels, mocking justice, is an affront. Cohen has not been prosecuted for any of the crimes that you allege against Trump, and he faces no consequences as a result of having his admitted and recurring perjury. And remember that Cohen was also allegedly facilitating all of these crimes that they're trying Trump for. But Cohen did it all. He's going to be their witness. I took this, I moved this, I did whatever. Now, by contrast, in 2022, the DA's office improperly relied on unlawful leverage by Judge Mercan Wan to order to pressure Weisselberg to plead guilty, admit to facts that he disputed, and adopt your preferred narrative, and cooperate in the Trump Corp trial. Now, as you know, Judge Wan's failure to recuse himself from that case, despite his participation in those shameful negotiations, is currently on appeal. Now, as with suborning Cohen's perjury, individual prosecutors and their facilitation of Juan Mercan's handling of the plea negotiations has serious ethical implications. Saying, Alvin, just so you know, there is deep irony in all of this, with due process implications. If you decide to pursue a perjury case against Weisselberg, which you have done, during the same time where you're refusing to even investigate Cohen's admitted perjury at the same trial. Okay, so two guys come out of this one trial. Fake prosecution for Weisselberg. No prosecution for Cohen. Weird. Now, we understand that Weisselberg is serving a term of probation because he took a guilty plea in 2022. However, Cohen was also serving a term of federal supervised release because he committed perjury and pleaded guilty to that. Now, the terms of Cohen's supervised release require him not to commit any more crimes. And we recognize that you're not in a position to pursue a violation of supervised release, and we are concerned by the failure of the federal probation authorities to do so. However, Alvin, your cynical inaction with respect to the violations that result from Cohen's perjury are also problematic, and even more so with the callous and vindictive approach that you've taken towards Weisselberg. Now, your inaction with respect to your so-called star witness, while actively pursuing an unfair and unwarranted plea from Weisselberg, cannot be a resource issue. 9 prosecutors proudly signed the filing on your behalf and in support of Cohen. So we are left with the impression that there must be some other motivation, I wonder what it could be, to drive your decision to put Cohen on a public pedestal, say this is an honorable person, when he is actively monetizing this whole thing. He sells a completely fabricated story to the public on his stupid X account, as you seek to reincarcerate a 76-year-old man called Allen who poses no threat to anyone, all while New York is rampaged with violent crime rates impacting everybody on your watch. Now, whether that is a part of a coordinated effort with Tish James to enhance her position in the Trump case, or whether it's a strategy to impact Weisselberg's role in this trial, your corrupt tactics are improper, and they are contrary to the basic principles of decency. And we urge you to reconsider as to both Weisselberg and Cohen. Not going to happen. So they give us some more background here. They tell us, during the People versus Weisselberg, the prosecution team insisted that he go to prison, and he cooperated and even provided helpful evidence. But if he helped, but he didn't. When he resisted that approach, you then saw Juan Mercan as an arm of the prosecution, suggesting that Weisselberg's attorneys meet with the court. So then Weisselberg's attorney met with Judge Wan. During the meeting, Wan indicated that unless Weisselberg cooperated against Trump and the others, he would only offer Weisselberg prison. Wow. So they did what's called a settlement conference, where they brought him in and they said, well, yeah, I mean, Juan Mercan, the judge, said, well, if he comes before my court on these charges, I'm probably going to give him prison. And they said, well, Judge, is there anything we can do to avoid a prison sentence? And he says, well, there are certain things in the statute that might help. One of these is cooperation with the government. And they say, oh, okay. So, okay, they go back to their client. Hey, they're going to throw you in prison unless you cooperate. That's what the judge told us, right? And they say, oh. So in other words, he adopted Manhattan's position, same judge. Judge Wan also stated that if Weisselberg went to trial and was convicted, he would sentence him to a longer prison term. So these judges are just the worst. is going to give him a trial tax. If you exercise your right to trial, you get taxed for that if you lose. Judge Juan stated further that he would remand Weisselberg as soon as the verdict was returned. You go right into custody and deny bail. And this dude's 76. So in short, Juan indicated that the only way to avoid serving time behind bars was if Weisselberg cooperated and pleaded guilty. That's your justice system in action, right? We think we live in a system and a society where people and witnesses aren't pushed into doing things. We watched right there. And that's absolutely, in my opinion, true. I believe that that absolutely happened. Because I've been in the rooms when it does happen. I've had judges tell me that. Well, you know, your client. So Mr. Weisselberg and his attorneys, they agreed to talk to Manhattan about whether Weisselberg had truthful information. However, it became clear that he did not have any information that fit the DA's preconceived version of the facts. Right? So Bragg says, here's what I need from you. I don't have any of that. And so they sent Weisselberg's attorneys, they sent the judge a letter. They said he didn't give them what they wanted. So then Weisselberg's attorneys and Judge Juan, they met in connection with these plea negotiations. Now, during a meeting with Judge Juan, Alvin suggested that it would recommend a sentence of 6 months prison for this guy if he would plead guilty, adopt a detailed factual allocution, which is like a it's a recitation of the facts. So Manhattan writes it. And then they're going to say, do you agree to this? And he says, yes, I do. Alvin agrees. Yes, okay. So agree to testify against Trump and agree that the sentence would be held in abeyance until after the trial. So then the judge said, I'll give you 5 months jail terms. I'll give you less jail if you do everything that Bragg wants, holding jail over a witness's head. Typical. Now, on the afternoon of August 17th, Judge Juan then met with Manhattan and Mr. Weisselberg, and he confirmed the plea allocution. It's a recitation of the facts. Now, the next day, Weisselberg then pleaded guilty to a series of felonies, including tax fraud. At that hearing, Juan questioned Mr. Weisselberg using the allocution. Juan also told Weisselberg that if he did not comply with the terms, he would impose up to 5 to 15 years in prison. So you can see how testimony starts to change, right? They say, well, you know, you do all of this deal. And then they say, well, we need you to, do you have this information? No, you don't have it. Well, what if I go tell the judge? Whoa, you're going to tell the judge I don't have the information, or I'll tell the judge you're not being cooperative. Boom. Now you've got a prison threat dangling over your head like the sword of Damocles. Mr. Weisselberg testified in the Trump Corp trial over the course of 3 days in November 2022. And on January 10th, Juan sentenced Weisselberg to the 5 months in prison and probation. Now, according to the New York Times, almost a year later, Manhattan contacted Weisselberg's counsel about an alleged perjury that came out during testimony. Now, we necessarily lack detailed information about those negotiations, but as we understand it, Mr. Weisselberg was met with 2 unfair options. They came back at him. They said either you plead guilty to perjury and crimes you did not commit in exchange for another minimal prison term. So we'll add a little bit more time. But if you refuse this, Alan, to this new perjury charge that's made up, you will be promptly indicted. And then you're going to have him jailed for a probation violation. And you're going to take a senior innocent man, you're going to make him suffer in jail, waiting on a hearing on an alleged violation of probation, which has a very low burden of proof, so obviously that'll stand. And then if Weisselberg is unsuccessful fighting the probation violation charge, the new charge, it would then result in a sentencing before Judge Juan, who has already promised to send him to jail for several years in that event. And so, of course, what did Weisselberg do? Of course, he pleaded guilty. He went down, he took perjury in the first degree. He said, I'll go to prison for 5 more months. And then he appeared before this judge, Lori Peterson. Now, apparently, despite Juan Mercan's role in the negotiations, it appears that Weisselberg will go 6 weeks in, not 5 months. There's no publicly available information as to why, after improperly selecting Juan to preside over all of the cases, why he is not presiding over that perjury prosecution. So what happened there? Very curious question. Says, okay, now, so that's Alan Weisselberg, right? They went after that dude hard for no reason. But let's take a look at what happened with Michael Cohen. Remember that Michael Cohen is a convicted perjurer. On August 21st, 2018, Cohen pleaded guilty to 5 counts of tax evasion and 1 count of false statements in violation of the law. In his allocution, Cohen accepted full responsibility. Remember this? The defendant, Michael Cohen, here's what he said. Your Honor, in the tax years of 2012 to 2016, I evaded paying substantial taxes on certain income I received that I knew was not reflected in the return that I caused to be filed. He's reading. On or about February of 2016, in order to be approved for a HELOC loan, a home equity line of credit, I reviewed an application form that did not accurately describe the full extent of my liabilities. I did not correct the information on that form. Judge walks up, chimes in. Well, you knew it was false, that it falsely depicted your financial condition, didn't you? Yes, Your Honor, I did. Right? And this is part of what you do when you're taking a plea. You lay down a factual basis for the plea deal. If you, in other words, you can't plead guilty to something that didn't happen. They say, do you plead guilty to this DUI? You're like, no, I was riding my bicycle. I wasn't even drunk. Well, you can't plead guilty to that because they'll say, isn't it true that on or about this date in Arizona, you drove a vehicle under the influence? You say, no, that never happened. So then they could not enter the plea. So you got to make sure the defendant agrees to it. The judge is digging in. Then on November 29th, Cohen also pleaded guilty in a separate federal criminal case as to making false statements to Congress. Here's what he said back then. He said, in 2017, I was scheduled to appear before the Senate Select Committee on Intelligence, as well as the House Permanent Select Committee on Intelligence concerning matters under their investigation, including principally whether Russia was involved or interfered in 2016. Can you believe they called that guy to Congress? Michael Cohen to Congress. It just shows you how debased the whole entity is. In connection with my appearances, I submitted a written statement to Congress, including, among other things, a description of a proposed real estate project in Moscow that I had worked on while I was employed by Trump. Right? That description was false. So this guy is so dishonorable and a liar and a convicted perjurer that he created a fake proposal, real estate project, and wrote a fake description for it, and then sent it into Congress. Okay, lied to all of Congress. That's how, first of all, dumb he is. He was being used as a tool, just like he's still being used as a tool. Sends that into Congress, and they all realize that's a lie. That never happened, obviously. And so he lied to Congress, and Alvin Bragg's like, perfect, that's our guy. We're going to put him up on the witness stand in this new Trump prosecution. Great. So the cases were consolidated for the purpose of sentencing, and Pauly, the judge, sentenced Cohen to 36 months in prison and a 3-year term of supervised release. Now, notably, Cohen was given full credit for his purported acceptance of responsibility, right? So Cohen got a benefit for this, and he received a below the guidelines sentence. If you don't accept responsibility, then the judge might say, well, you haven't learned your lesson, it sounds like, so you might need a little harsher of a penalty, you know? So Cohen comes in, yes, I was wrong, I'm sorry, mea culpa, you know, my fault, all the things. And he accepts responsibility, so he gets a benefit. Then after he gets the benefit, then he's like, no, that never happened. I never lied to anybody. Now, even before his sentencing, Michael Cohen, the liar, he began to minimize the seriousness of his decision not to report this millions of dollars. Now, specifically in connection when he was sending stuff over to probation, right? So probation's like, well, tell me what you did. Cohen, he said, all relevant bank records were provided annually, and Cohen repeated these efforts. He tried to blame his accountant. And that's not my fault, my accountant did it. Accordingly, to the government prosecutors at the Southern District of New York, okay, so DOJ entities, they said Cohen's statements were, quote, simply false, and the government was prepared to prove at trial that the limited information Cohen did provide to his accountant could not have led his accountant to cover or uncover the unreported income. So then in December of 2019, less than 1 month into his 36-month probation sentence, Cohen sought a sentence reduction. But the government, the DOJ, opposed that. They informed the judge that they had substantial concerns, right? The government prosecutors from the DOJ, they wrote this back in to the court. They said that prosecutors had, quote, substantial concerns about Cohen's credibility as a witness, based in part on lies that he made during proffers that included material false statements. So he is giving the government a bunch of information. They're all lies too. That was in January and February. And the government put this in writing, right? That's like that. They're quoting their own documents. The prosecutors also expressed concern, the DOJ, that apparent contradictions exist between Cohen's post-sentencing congressional testimony and his guilty pleas and his certain filings in the Southern District of New York, and a litany of public comments made by Cohen and his surrogates about his federal case, many of which minimized his acceptance of responsibility and were inconsistent with his guilty pleas and other disputed facts, all from their filings. You see this here. They cited this in their own document. Cohen repeatedly attempted to walk back his own guilty pleas. He said there was no tax evasion. That's a lie. A televised interview, Cohen came out. He described the role in one of the campaign finance charges. He said, I just reviewed all the documents. And Cohen's claims in litigation that all 8 of the charges against him said that he was doing it on behalf of Trump and he had nothing to do with it. Right? So the dude just lies constantly. And even the DOJ is calling it out. So if now Alvin Bragg decides that he wants to run with this witness, we got questions about that. Why are you running with a witness who's so disdained that even the prosecutors, even the DOJ, even they won't touch this dude? Judge Pauley denied Cohen's motion. He said, you did make, a judge found this, made material and false statements in his post-sentencing proffer sessions, and that his surrogates and their ad hominem attacks against the prosecutors, it lacked any substance. And then in the following years, Cohen also filed several unsuccessful motions seeking early termination of his supervised release. In June 23 last year, he filing opposing one of Cohen's requests. Government prosecutors, again, they came out. They said that Cohen continues to downplay his conduct. They said, more recently, don't let Cohen terminate his probation early. Why? Because he's still lying, Judge. He's been lying. He lied and he's continuing to lie. More recently, before trying to end his probation, he falsely wrote in a book. This is the government writing this. These are prosecutors. Cohen falsely wrote in a book that he authored. He said, I did not engage in tax fraud. It's weird because you pleaded guilty to it. That the tax charges were all 100% inaccurate and that he was threatened by prosecutors to plead guilty. Now, additionally, in a recent attempt to distance himself from the guilty plea to making false statements to a financial institution about his tax medallion liabilities, Cohen stated on TV, first and foremost, there was no fraud in the medallions. I don't even know what he's talking about. Now, Cohen's statements are belied by his under oath statements when he pled guilty, which included that he was guilty of tax evasion and false statements and that he had not been threatened or forced to plead guilty. And they are evidence that Cohen has not taken full responsibility for his actions. Indeed, quite the opposite. As the government notes and stated previously, while Cohen is free to write and say what he wants, he cannot simultaneously distance himself from the conduct on cable news and cloak himself in claims that he accepted responsibility in court filings and got a lower sentence because of it. So they say remarkably, Cohen's most recent request for relief has been overshadowed. Oh, they're good. They're going to dunk on him for this. Overshadowed by revelations by the fact that he caused his lawyers to cite magical federal cases that don't even exist. This is the Google Bard fiasco. On November 29th, counsel for Cohen, they sent a letter into the judge. Cohen said, and his lawyers, that his client had given unwavering cooperation, and he gave critical testimony, and he gave a truthful account of his experience in Tish's trial. And they demonstrate an exceptional level of remorse, and so his probation should be terminated early. Now, counsel also cited, this is Cohen's lawyer, remember this? They cited a bunch of case law. Weird. There were a bunch of district court decisions, amazing, affirmed by the Second Circuit that grant early termination of supervised release. Remember this? So Cohen, he sent all this case law. United States versus Figueroa Flores. Second Circuit 2022. United States versus Ortiz. Decided also 2022, Second Circuit. And United States versus Amato, that's a Westlaw case, also cited in 2022, all decided by the Second Circuit, right? That's kind of your first idea that the Second Circuit decided all these in 1 year. That's pretty amazing. And all these cases are directly on point with my legal issue. Amazing. Second Circuit, like 3 back-to-back. Wild. And different months too. Anyway, so those were all made up. Now on December 12th, so Cohen just makes stuff up all the time, including with using technology. Judge Furman entered an order to show cause as to why sanctions should not be imposed relating to the 3 cases that were cited in the motion. The judge wrote back to Cohen, as far as the court can tell, none of these cases exist. Now, in response, the attorney who filed the motion on behalf of Cohen informed Judge Furman that Cohen sent him the citations, right? The lawyer says, I got it from my client. The attorney asserted that he believed at the time that based on comments made to him by Cohen, that the citations originated from another attorney representing Cohen, but that he learned after the court's show cause order that Cohen admitted to his other attorney that he found the cases, quote, on Google. Okay, so Cohen's even lying to his lawyers. Cohen probably didn't want his bill to be, a lot, so he sends this other lawyer, hey, use these cases. The lawyer says, where'd you get them? Cohen says, from my other lawyer. He says, you look them up? Yeah, they're good. Okay, I'll put them in the motion. You want me to? Did you look at them? Yeah, they're good. Okay, put them in. Lying to his lawyer. He got them from Google Bard. Now, in his separate filing, Cohen didn't even want to take responsibility for that either. He tried to minimize it. He says, Your Honor, in a filing, he says, this is a simple case of a client making a well-intentioned but a poorly informed suggestion, trusting, as he was entitled to, that his attorney would vet that suggestion. So he sends him the fake cases and then blames his attorney for not looking them up, which is true. The lawyer signed that. I mean, you should look it up. But still, like, Cohen was a lawyer at one point. Moreover, I think Cohen asserted that his recollection differs from Schwartz and that he is certain that he did not tell Schwartz that Miss Perry would provide or had been providing any cases of this sort. So clearly lying. Now, he said, yeah, it's clear once again that Cohen is lying. Cohen said, I tried to send this from Miss Perry through Cohen, and I spoke with Cohen via telephone, as I did frequently. On those calls, he reiterated to me that Miss Perry would be providing the cases. Again, dude is lying through his teeth. We also know that he lied at the trial. They say, Alvin, as you are aware, Michael Cohen also recently testified in the civil case. Now, during his testimony, he committed perjury by falsely testifying that he refused a motion pursuant to the law from the U.S. Attorney's Office. That's not true. And 2, by testifying falsely that he did not commit the crimes that were charged in the original counts 1 through 6. Here's what it sounded like. Now, most notably, Michael Cohen, convicted perjurer, testified that he was not guilty of the federal tax evasion charges. And he also confirmed in trial that he lied to Judge William Pauley during his sworn plea allocution in 2018. This included the following sworn testimony about the guilty plea. Question to Michael Cohen. Michael, liar. Have you ever made any public statements concerning the legitimacy of your convictions? More than one, he says. And why did you do that? Because there was no tax evasion, says Michael. At best, it could be characterized as tax omission, okay? I have never in my life not paid taxes. That's not what we're asking. We're asking about all the taxes. I have never requested an extension until 2017. Every year I had paid no extensions on time, what my CPA accountant directed me to pay. So there was no tax evasion. That's curious because you pled guilty to that. Here's a question from Michael Cohen. Did you lie to Judge Pauley when you said that you were guilty of the counts that you said under oath that you were guilty of? Did you lie to Judge Pauley, Michael Cohen? Yes, I did. Yes. That's insane. You lied to a federal judge? So, sir, you lied at the time. You lied more than once in federal court. Is that correct? Correct. Now, when the stakes affected you personally, you lied, didn't they? Correct. And you misled a federal judge, right, Michael? Yes, I did. So Cohen then reiterated in public statements on the steps of the courthouse where the trial was due to take place that he repeatedly lied and he committed perjury. Now, at a bare minimum, Alvin, Cohen's testimony demonstrates that he has committed perjury either when pleading guilty to the federal charges or when recently testifying in New York that he did not commit the crimes to which he pleaded guilty. The truth cannot have it both ways. And so your office needs to know this. Even federal prosecutors responsible for bringing the federal charges against Cohen, they have represented to the federal court their belief that it is the latter, that Cohen lied in his recent court testimony. He lied in Engeron's court. Citing his recent testimony, the DOJ prosecutors, they opposed another attempt by Cohen to terminate his probation early. They say he appears to have lied under oath in a court proceeding. The prosecutors also say they have evidence to prove it. They said, to be clear, Cohen was guilty of tax evasion over a period of years. He pled guilty to it, purported to take responsibility for it at his sentencing, and he received credit for that, for even accepting responsibility. And the government had sufficient evidence to prove him guilty of tax evasion beyond a reasonable doubt if he had gone to trial. Now, after admitting to multiple past instances of perjury before both courts and Congress, Cohen once again committed perjury right in front of Judge Engeron, right in front of him. In response to questions asked by the Attorney General, Cohen first claimed to have been specifically tasked by Trump to increase his total assets and to falsely inflate the total net worth. And Cohen doubled down on this falsehood when confronted with his previous testimony to Congress that he did not recall ever being directed by Trump to inflate the numbers, claiming that he lied under oath to Congress in that instance. So he admitted, right? Nope. Cohen says, Trump told me to inflate the total assets. But you didn't say, when somebody asked you about that in Congress, you said no. So were you lying then or are you lying now? Shortly thereafter, Cohen reversed course and stated that he, in fact, did not lie to Congress. He then admitted he lied earlier. No, I lied to you earlier. And I admitted that President Trump never actually told him to falsely inflate his assets. Crazy. Now, yet despite all these admissions of perjury and despite his blatant perjury during that trial, and Engeron said he was believable, you have refused to even investigate, much less prosecute Cohen, and you plan to fully call him as a witness in your upcoming criminal trial? Your office has indicated that you continue to, and you intend to call Cohen as a witness. Now, Cohen will presumably falsely testify yet again that he did not commit the tax evasion crimes to which he pleaded guilty in 2018, and he may even try to shift blame to federal prosecutors for charging him with bogus crimes. And based on this, we urge you, Alvin, to remove Cohen from your witness list and do not commit a new crime. Avoid the illegal act of suborning perjury. Don't put a liar on the stand, because you could be in trouble for that. Now, as officers of the court, prosecutors are charged with the duty to ensure that evidence is truthful. And this includes an obligation to prevent lies from coming out on the stand. You're held to high standards. You have a lot more power. It's fundamentally unfair for a prosecutor to put a liar on the stand. Saying these issues, Alvin, demand careful consideration because of the legal, ethical, and the constitutional issues they implicate. We again urge you to reconsider your positions regarding Cohen and Mr. Weisselberg and put an end to the selective and oppressive misconduct of your office. In addition, because of the manner in which your office has selectively leaked information you deem favorable, we are going to be making this public, as they have done, enabling us to read it and enjoy it. A very good letter that just shows what a double standard here exists, signed by Todd Blanche and others, Emil Bove and Stephen Weiss from Blanche Law, attorneys for Trump, going over to Alvin Bragg at the DA's office in New York County. And as you can see, the double standard exists. Michael Cohen is a liar, lied multiple times, lied about lying, then reversed his lies. They can't keep him straight. And he's going to be their star witness. Meanwhile, they are prosecuting Weisselberg, who is on Trump's side, to take him out of the entire equation. And as we saw, a lot of that was based on the civil case, the underlying fraud prosecution that was brought by Elie Tish. And Alina Habba is saying all of that is on appeal anyways. So in other words, where they're claiming Weisselberg lied and how the testimony played out, the entire Engeron case is on appeal. So the question is, are we going to be undoing some of this in some way, shape, or form? Alina says we're appealing it. We're feeling good about it.
And the last one, your case in New York, where judges said $465 million, you got to come up with it. I think Trump petitioned the court to say, can I come up with $100 million? And I believe they said, where's that stand? Let's just ask you that.
Sure. The Attorney General case is on appeal. We're waiting on that decision. We had a good hearing last week on that case. Obviously, the judge, the appellate division saw that there were some issues in the order and rectified them. Look, I think that our appellate, I've said this a million times, I think our appellate case is going to be very strong. We have a good record for appeal. We know that there were decisions that were made in error. We know that there was an appellate division decision that narrowed the statute of limitations, which was completely ignored in the trial court. And like I say all the time, honestly, it's time to let our side come out and for the American people to be patient and see what happens today. And it'll
all right, so Alina says that they're looking good. Their appeal will be working its way through. And of course, this is New York, so things are historically not good there for Donald Trump. Remember the E. Jean Carroll saga? We had 2 different hearings or trials on that one. We have, of course, Tish James, and now we've got the Alvin Bragg prosecution. So Trump sends the open letter. I do not believe that Alvin Bragg is going to voluntarily dismiss Cohen in any way, shape, or form. But now the public can know how bad of a witness he is and that this guy's going to make up the crux of the entire case. It's all set up to go after Trump. It is now being accelerated because the other trials are being delayed. This case was originally not even anything that we were worried about this year because Alvin admitted that the other trials were going to go first. But now that the other trials are all falling apart, Jack Smith is failing, Fani Willis is majorly failing, they've accelerated this. They know this case is very weak. They know Michael Cohen's a terrible witness, but it's New York. So who cares, right? As long as they get the right jury, it's going to be a difficult hill to climb, and they just need a single felony conviction before the trial, I think, to get their political victory. And it's going to be less of a victory until the Supreme Court came out with that opinion yesterday saying that only Congress can disqualify somebody on an insurrection clause. Although this is not an insurrection case, one theory was that a felony conviction would be parlayed into some other consequence that they could try to use to disqualify him from the ballot. But interesting development. Now, trial is right around the corner, my friends. This one is looming. It's on deck. So thank you for subscribing wherever it is you're watching this. Thanks for joining us as we continue this coverage, not only in this case, but all of the other Trump sagas that are currently afoot. We would love it if you checked out some of the links in our description box below, including our locals community at watchingthewatchers.locals.com, including robertgovea.com, where you can get and access all the PDFs that we are going through here today. And we'd love to see you back here joining us on the next one. All right, my friends. Now, let's turn our attention to Fani and Wade. The Fani-Wade cover-up is now confirmed by 2 additional witnesses. We're waiting for Judge McAfee to issue a ruling on this, but new motions are skidding in. The question is he going to incorporate those into his rulings? Evidence is closed. We had summation arguments, and new stuff keeps popping off, including these 2 submissions from co-defendants in the RICO prosecution, David Shafer and Cathy Latham. We've got a Cobb County prosecutor who's now speaking up, and a law professor who says that Terrence Bradley was not honest in his testimony. So it seems like the floodgates are opening. Pandora's box is now cracked, and Fani and Wade are catching it from other people who are coming out of the woodwork. Scott McAfee's up for re-election. We've got reaction saying that even Fani and Wade could be charged for perjury or fraud. Maybe there's a RICO indictment that they should be brought under to go after all the people who were involved in this disgusting cover-up. And of course, Trump is out responding to the Fani saga. But let's see who is now joining in on the fun, who's got some of that inside information that is coming out against Fani. Another witness brought to us courtesy of David James Shafer. They've got proposed testimony that they'd like to introduce into the Fani saga. Here's how it sounds. Out in the state of Georgia, Fulton County, Scott McAfee's courtroom, they say David Shafer, as a defendant, respectfully submits to the court and to the parties that in the event that evidence were reopened, we know it's closed, but if it were reopened, because there's a bunch of motions that are being filed, if we have a new motion to dismiss or anything else that you're considering, Judge, we want this to be included. Currently, we're trying to get rid of Wade and Fani. And if the prosecution and evidence is opened up, they say that Mr. Shafer, the defendant, would offer the testimony of this person. She is an attorney. Her name is Cindi Yeager. She is the co-chief deputy district attorney from Cobb County, Georgia. Whoa, man, she's a prosecutor. She is a colleague. She's one county over. She's like, yeah, I'll help. What do you need? Another prosecutor. On Friday, March 1st, Miss Yeager spoke via telephone with the undersigned counsel for Mr. Shafer and Mr. Christopher Anelwitz, counsel for Robert Cheeley. So two lawyers on the phone. They're talking with this prosecutor. Here's a summary of the proposed testimony, which was provided by Miss Yeager to counsel for Mr. Shafer and Mr. Cheeley. So three lawyers, two defense attorneys, and a prosecutor. Sounds like a sitcom. From in or around, here is what Miss Yeager is telling us. From in or around August of 2023, so just last year, through January of 2024, Miss Yeager had numerous in-person and other conversations with the attorney called Terrence Bradley, in which information related to Willis and Wade was discussed. Oof. Now, in the course of Bradley's and Miss Yeager's discussions, Bradley told Miss Yeager the following, saying, D.A. Willis and Mr. Wade, they met during a 2019 municipal court CLE conference. Oh, no! So Bradley again confirms this. And I guess he must be speculating to this person too. He's just spreading gossip around. They say Mr. Wade, this again is coming from Bradley. And this is the CLE. This is the judicial conference. They were in their robes. They were feeling frisky. You know how lawyers get at these conferences. But they said, the lie is that they said their relationship started in 22. And they put that in an affidavit to the court. Mr. Wade began his romantic relationship with Fani at around that time. Busted. Mr. Wade had definitively begun a romantic relationship with Willis during the time that Willis was running for DA in 2019 to 2020. All before their affidavit said that they had a relationship. Again, you know, Fani and Wade, they're going to say, well, what is romantic relationship? We don't really think that started until 2022 when Fani sat him down and said, I want to be your boyfriend. Can we change our Facebook status? And he's like, fine, I'll do it. But they were indicting each other, you know, in their robes and other things for a long time before that moment. Now, Mr. Bradley stated that he had no personal knowledge of the relationship between Mr. Wade and D.A. Willis, and he included details regarding the use of Miss Robin Yurdy's apartment and other meetings prior to November 2021. So that's weird because Bradley's telling this to everybody except the court. He told this to Miss Yeager. He told this to Ashley Merchant and apparently many other people, as we'll find out. But the only time he can't remember any of this is in the courtroom. Isn't that curious? So Mr. Bradley stated that Mr. Wade personally prepared his own divorce complaint against his spouse. And I believe this too. These guys were just trading work, right? So Wade didn't want to go hire someone else. I'll just draft one up. It's all forms anyways, whatever. I'll just download it. Can I just use your name? Obviously I can't file it myself. Can you just file this for me? That's why there was no fee agreement, no contract, no billing records, nothing. Because Wade did it. Miss is Jocelyn Wade. He says, just sign it. And he told Mr. Bradley to sign the divorce papers and to file them. Just do it. Now, based on these statements, it is Miss Yeager's understanding that Mr. Bradley did not begin representing Mr. Wade until November of 2021. And remember that Bradley said that they formed a relationship back, and I think he said 2018. It was like at a barbecue. He came over. He's like, hey, man, hey, are the burgers done? What's up? It says, hey, I'm thinking about divorcing my wife. Everything after that, is now fair game. It's all pro talk, not bro talk. But obviously, this person says, no. Bradley said, no, I just filed it. I just slapped my name on it and sent it in. So in or around September of 2023, Mr. Bradley was visiting Miss Yeager in her office when Mr. Bradley received a telephone call. So they're in the same room together. Bradley visiting Miss Yeager. Okay, so up until now, by the way, all of this is Bradley telling this to Yeager. And she hasn't had any personal observations yet, right? She's just, oh, that's weird. He's talking to her about it. So then in September 23, Yeager is there. Bradley's there. Bradley picks up the phone. Cell phone rings. Hello? Miss Yeager could hear that the caller was Big Fanny. Hard to miss. Probably screaming for her glasses and water and documents. I need it right now. On the phone. Willis was calling Mr. Bradley in response to an article that was published about how much money Mr. Wade and his law partners had been paid in this case. Whoa. Miss Yeager heard, okay, this is her hearing this. This is her own observations now. She didn't hear this from Terrence Bradley. She heard this herself. Whoa. She heard Big Fanny tell Mr. Bradley, they are coming after us. You don't need to talk to them about anything about us. They are coming after us, says Fanny. Busted. And this is a prosecutor, right, who presumably is going to come in and tell the truth. So, government prosecutor hears Fanny telling Bradley, shut your mouth. You don't need to talk to them about anything about us. Shut your mouth. Because I'm giving my lover, my boyfriend, hundreds of thousands of dollars. Shut your mouth. And this is Yeager's own eyeballs and ears that heard all of this. So it's not just gossip, right, anymore. Miss Yeager watched Mr. Bradley's testimony. She sat there. I hope he tells the truth. We all hoped he was going to tell the truth. Because obviously, if you double down on a lie, especially a lie like this one, you're going to get busted. Like, Fanny and Nathan should have just come clean at the beginning. That was our recommendation. If they had any honor and integrity, they would have done that and saved themselves a lot of pain. But they didn't. They thought they were too smart and that they were going to overcome all of the truth, I guess. And they doubled down on the lie. They submitted an affidavit that clearly is fake and is a new crime called perjury. And then Bradley was given an opportunity to just come tell the truth, man. And he couldn't do it. So she watched him before the court, and she became concerned as a result of the fact that what Mr. Bradley testified to on the witness stand was directly contrary to what Mr. Bradley told Miss Yeager in person. Of course. Where's everyone? Where is everyone else? I would say, right? Everyone knows this. And this, shout out to this prosecutor for coming out. Now, therefore, in the event that the court reopens the hearing to receive additional evidence, as requested by the state and Trump, Mr. Shafer requests that the defense be permitted to subpoena Miss Yeager and present Miss Yeager's testimony relating to the matters set forth herein. Yeah, and so they gave him a chance, right? They gave Bradley a chance. Don't be dishonest. And she gave him the opportunity, and then he didn't, and so she's now speaking out. She's in a different county, so she's not in Fulton County, where Big Fanny resides, and she has a little bit more freedom to come out and speak about this. And so shout out to Miss Yeager, a good prosecutor who is coming out of the woodwork to blow the whistle on Fanny and Wade and Terrence Bradley. Fani Willis overheard by another prosecutor telling another lawyer to shut his mouth because they're investigating the money and they're coming after us. That's the DA of Fulton. Signed by Craig Gillen, Holly Pearson. Excellent work. And we're excited to see where that one goes. Now, as a note, David Shafer, he is on the X platform, and I do believe he is crowdfunding for his defense in this case. And so if you're on X and if you want to go support someone who could use a little bit of monetary love from you, David Shafer's fighting this, and he has a need for some support. So he is on X, and if you go to his X profile, you'll find him, and he does have a place where you can donate. So certainly keep that in mind if you're interested in that. Now, the other witness, another one, comes afoot. Fani Willis is even in more trouble. You see, Cathy Latham files this notice as well. She's another co-defendant. We're talking about Fulton County, Big Fani Willis. Witness number 2, defendant Cathy Latham says, you know, in the event, Judge McAfee, that you happen to reopen evidence on these various motions, if you do that, Miss Latham, our client, we would offer the testimony of another attorney called Manny Arora, who's a former adjunct professor at Georgia State School of Law, and he's board certified in criminal law. On Thursday, February 29th, Mr. Arora spoke by phone, another phone call, with the undersigned counsel for Miss Latham. Now, following is a summary of the proposed testimony, which was provided by Mr. Arora to the counsel for Miss Latham. Mr. Arora says, between September through October 2023, Mr. Arora, the law professor, he had several conversations with Terrence Bradley regarding the relationship between Willis and Wade. So Bradley again, wow, suddenly it's not so speculative. Suddenly he's telling everybody about it. Man, he's a major gossip, right? Now, in the course of Mr. Bradley's and Mr. Arora's discussion, Mr. Bradley told Arora the following. 1, Mr. Wade had definitely begun a romantic relationship with Miss Willis during the time that Willis was running for DA. That means 2019 to 2020. That is way before the 2022 affidavit, which means liars. After the election and during Miss Willis's transition, not that kind, she had Mr. Wade supervise the transition, including hiring and firing candidates after the interviews. So she just says, I'll just have my boyfriend do all this stuff, and then I'll just appoint him. Mr. Bradley stated that he had personal knowledge of the relationship between Wade and Willis, including details regarding the use of Miss Robin Yurdy's apartment, another statement there, such as Mr. Wade having a garage opener to the property. You know, it's a pain in the butt to have someone open the door for you and all that. Just give him a garage. Here's a remote. Come on in. 2 new witnesses, my friends, and these are credible witnesses, right? One is a former prosecutor, or current prosecutor rather. The other is a law professor, and they both have statements that say Terrence Bradley lied to the court, told Ashley Merchant that, told prosecutor Yeager that, and told Mr. Law Professor Arora that. And then when he was asked about this in court, oh, can't remember a thing. So therefore, in the event that the court does reopen the hearing to receive additional evidence as requested by the state, they want it open, Trump wants it open, Miss Latham requests that the defense be permitted to subpoena Mr. Arora and present that testimony herein. Another just bombshell, signed by William Cromwell, defense attorney extraordinaire for Cathy Latham. So good stuff coming out. Now, there are questions, right, about whether evidence is going to be reopened, but the judge just read all of that, okay? He may not include it in his evidence. He may not say, sure, let's go hear from them or whatever, but he read that. So he now knows that there is another prosecutor who is now talking about this. There's another law professor who's talking about this. And the reason these law professors and these prosecutors are talking about it is because it's disgusting what Fani and Wade have done. It really is shattering their entire reputation and the entire Fulton County. It's like a laughingstock. And these people are in this profession. And so you don't want, right, even pick your profession, whatever it is that you do, you don't want rotten people giving your bad profession a name. And that's exactly what Fani and Wade are doing. And so good prosecutors, good law professors are coming out to tell them, sorry, you have to be honest or else you got to go. And so as you can see, it feels like the floodgates are opening a little bit. It feels like there is another layer to this. Of course, we have the court of law, but we also have the court of public opinion. Does Fani and Wade's misconduct, does it reach a level of disqualification? And if it does it go beyond that and justify a dismissal? Well, legally, we don't really know. It's a matter of first impression. In fact, Judge McAfee is going to have to set the standard on what this looks like, and he is up for re-election. So he just got his campaign website launched, and we had a lot of curiosity about how this might impact his decision. And when people go to the polls, what are they going to be thinking about? So Tamar Hallerman on X, she said, Fulton County Superior Court Judge Scott McAfee has officially qualified to be a candidate on this year's ballot. He's running for a full term on the bench after being appointed by Governor Kemp late in 2022. So you see here, there's the screenshot. Judge of the Superior Court, McAfee, is now on the ballot, and he is there in Fulton, and his website is keepjudgemcafee.com, and here's what it looks like. Judge Scott McAfee getting the job done for Fulton County. Well, we sure hope so there, Judge. We sure hope so. So, of course, he's running, and we're waiting for his ruling, and in my opinion, he's been very fair so far, and we're hopeful that he recognizes what a disaster this is for the entire legal profession there in Georgia and for the entire concept of the law elsewhere. And there are questions about what might happen next for Fani. And this was an exchange with a former prosecutor who says it might be appropriate for them to start thinking about federal and fraud charges, federal perjury and fraud charges. Let's listen to this clip.
He wasn't qualified for. That should disqualify them, don't you think?
Well, it really should, Brian. You know, it's really odd in this case that she thought it was going to be fine and that no one would notice that she was hiring her boyfriend. I think that's part of the reason that it seems like they were sneaking around at weird hours of the night, which is what that cell phone data is going to reveal. The initial question about disqualifying her, though, Brian, was all about the money that he was spending on her. Now, because of their actions in court, because of their testimony in hearings and Terrence Bradley's testimony and some other testimony, they're in much more trouble for possible perjury and fraud on the court.
It's amazing to think they're going to do something unprecedented, like have a state case in the timing. If they're out,
well,
what does it do?
Really hurts the case. It hurts the timing. What's going to happen, though, I think everything's going to get delayed. I doubt that Judge McAfee is going to rule today from the bench on all of the issues that are outstanding around disqualification. Obviously. He's going to want to listen to the evidence. He's going to want to hear.
Yeah, and he's going to issue a response. So, yeah, fraud, perjury, I think those are all valid and relevant. And, of course, Donald Trump has come out, and he's now talking about this as we all await a ruling. And he was out on the campaign trail explaining that all of this litigation is really brought by the Democrats. This clip came over from our friend Benny Johnson on the X, and here is what Trump said on the trail.
Look at Fani, you know, Fani is F-A-N-I.
Fani.
She indicted me. She wanted to indict U.S. senators for doing nothing. Indicted me for doing nothing. And it was her and a boyfriend, and he got almost $1 million. He had no experience, no nothing. Knew him a long time ago. Then she said something to the effect, I don't know much about the gentleman. They had 2,000 phone calls. I said, you know, I'm not sure I've ever called the First Lady 2,000 times, and I've been with her for a long time. I think, and they have thousands of text messages, right? But she's not sure whether or not she knows him. The whole thing is a con job. You look at what's going on in Manhattan where Hillary Clinton, think of it, Hillary Clinton's lawyer with a big law firm leaves the firm to go into the DA's office to prosecute me. Then he leaves the DA's office and he writes a book. He writes a book. Before anything was done, he's writing a book. I mean, how illegal is that? Or take deranged Jack Smith. He's a deranged person.
Yeah, that's true.
And look at his record. He's been overturned by the U.S. Supreme Court unanimously. These people are bad people. They were set out to do a number on me, to damage me, so that Biden could beat me, because that's the only way he can beat anybody, because he's damaged. I mean, he's really damaged goods. And you know what he should do? They're all his prosecutors. They work for him, like Fani and her lover went to Washington and spent at least 2 days that they know of, 8-hour days in the White House counsel's office or the DOJ. So they were working on this a long time in conjunction with Joe Biden's White House. The DA's office has one of the top people from the Justice Department, that's Washington, in other words, Merrick Garland's people, put their top person in the DA's office to handle this case. And it's a nonsense case. You know, every legal opinion I've read said it's not even a crime. It's not a crime. It's not this. It's not that. It should never be brought.
Yeah, it doesn't
should
matter.
have never. None of these things should have been brought.
That's true.
But it's all of these indictments are Biden indictments, and they're there to hurt an opponent. If I weren't running, none of this stuff would have ever happened. Or if I was doing badly, I would say it probably wouldn't happen. But all of this was done to inflict harm on his political opponent. And we've never had that in this country. It's something that's quite well known, but it's in other countries, not in this country. This is a big example. And honestly, what he should do is take all of those prosecutors off the cases and fight a really fair fight. We're going to win anyway, one way or the other. We're going to win anyway. But they should fight it fair, because it's so bad for the country. And people know what's happening. They see it. If they didn't see it, I'd be down at nothing. I'd be absolutely nothing. They get it, and they see weaponization. It's an attack on a political opponent.
If people thought that Trump actually did something bad, he's exactly right. The polls would not be what they are. His support would not be there. They wouldn't have to sell it, right? When somebody commits an actual crime, they don't have to sell it to you. Oh, it's a really bad thing what this person did. No, you just know. It's like, okay, that person did something very, very bad. Everyone knows it. The fact that they have to try to program a large portion of this country into thinking that it is a problem shows you how weak their claims are. And that's not just in Georgia, it's everywhere, every one of these. So we do have another possibility here. So there is a hearing taking place March 6th on Wednesday. We're going to be covering this live. Thank you for subscribing and joining us as we cover this. Will be an early one for us tomorrow, so we'll be here. Ashley Merchant is going to be testifying. She's going to be producing documents and sworn materials to the Georgia Senate. And this is going to be another interesting avenue, because what if someone else removes Fani, in other words? What if the Senate passes some legislation, they defund her, they remove her, she resigns, something like that happens? That might impact what Judge McAfee feels like he needs to do. He may not need to reach certain conclusions of law if they are now moot. You know what I mean? So he might have an escape hatch or a safety valve. If the Georgia legislature does something, maybe they try to remove Fani, or she gets, removed another way, then the court wouldn't have to reach that, and it wouldn't have to make any conclusions about the law that might impact the DA's office more broadly. So I'm trying to think about ways that someone could come in and save this case. Can they take this case away from the judge? Can the legislature just say, we're removing Fani from this, she's gone because of our, investigation, whatever. And so we're going to see what this looks like tomorrow, my friends. So thank you for subscribing. Thank you for joining us. It's going to be Wednesday, March 6th, and it's going to be live. It's going to be a lot of fun. So come and join us for an early morning. And also, don't forget to check out some of the links down in the description below. We've got a lot of good stuff down there, including our members-only community at watchingthewatchers.locals.com, where we do streams in the morning. We do streams on Saturday. We have an amazing group of friends over there. We'd love to have you. watchingthewatchers.locals.com. Come and join us. And also check out some of the other links where you can find all the PDFs at robertgovea.com. And we'll look forward to seeing you back here on the next one. All right, my friends. We got one final segment on the day, and let's get right to it. For this one, we're going down to Florida. And here's what we got. Jack Smith still scrambling to get a trial before the 2024 election. We know he has 0 of them currently scheduled. He wanted that January 6th case to go very badly, but looks like that's not going to happen. So his next best bet is Florida. And we see that there is a battle for trial dates. Can they anchor something in before the election happens? And there's a little interesting caveat to this because Trump has a backup plan. Trump obviously is saying if we have our first option, there will not be a trial before 2024. But if you're not going to give us that option, we're okay with August. And we were reading this, scratching our heads going, okay, August. Maybe they think they'll win. Maybe some of this trial stuff is very actually beneficial for the campaign, and they might want to try their luck in a favorable jurisdiction, which is Florida, in front of a reasonable judge, unlike what he's getting in other jurisdictions around this country. And so we are going to go through their quick proposed schedule and get some reaction from one of Trump's former lawyers called Jim Trusty, and as well as others on CNN. But first, this was an interesting exchange from Tim Parlatore, where he says he thinks the Florida case is in fact the most concerning. He was on with Jay Tapper, and Tim Parlatore is a former Trump lawyer. And when he was asked about what is going to be the biggest problem, we got a bunch of cases, Florida, J6, Fani Willis, and Alvin Bragg's prosecution. Which one is the most concerning to you? As somebody who used to work on many of these, Tim says this.
This month, his Florida classified documents case set to begin in May, though the judge said she might revisit that timeline. Right. Trump has been able to manage his dual legal campaign schedule thus far. Do you think that's going to change, though, as the trials consume more of his schedule?
Oh, I'm sure it is. I mean, when you're on trial, you're in the courtroom all day, every day. And, you know, certainly in some of these courthouses, you're not allowed to bring your phone in. You know, maybe they have different rules for the, former president with the Secret Service detail. But a lot of his time is just going to be taken up. And then once you get out of court at the end of the day,
part
it's
of the
exhausting.
strategy. Yeah.
And so I do think it will impact it.
Do you think that Trump will end up in a federal courtroom before the November election, or do you think ultimately the federal trials, which is the classified documents case and the January 6th case from Jack Smith, are going to be delayed until after the election, and then obviously if he wins, he'll dismiss them?
I think the January 6th trial gets pushed out past the election, and the classified documents, I give it 50-50.
50-50. Yeah. Interesting. If you were still representing Donald Trump, which of all these cases would you be most concerned about?
Classified documents case.
Classified. Why?
I think that is the case that is the most likely to survive an appeal. Yeah, it's in the friendliest jury pool jurisdiction. There are a lot of good arguments on either side, so it is definitely a good jury question, but I think that there aren't as many legal challenges that would cause it to be overturned on an appeal.
All right, so Trump's former attorney says Florida might be the most concerning, and maybe there's a 50-50 chance that it happens before the election. And Trump's people are kind of preparing for that. So we're going to read through their proposed schedule right after a quick message from our friends over at Vanish. Now let's take a look at the proposed schedule from Donald Trump's team. We see that they have responded to Judge Cannon's request for an order, and they want a trial date after the 2024 election, but they're willing to agree to an earlier start date. Here's a 9-pager. Donald Trump out of the West Palm Beach division, U.S. versus Trump and the other co-defendants, Judge Cannon's courtroom. Here is Trump's proposed schedule. They say, look, Judge, you told us you wanted an order, and so here it is. Here's what we think. Now, as the leading candidate, writes Trump's defense, in the 2024 election, even beating Joe now, the New York Times has to begrudgingly admit that, President Trump strongly asserts that a fair trial cannot be conducted this year in a manner that is consistent with the Constitution. Why? The Constitution affords Trump a Sixth Amendment right to be present at the trials and to participate in these proceedings. As well, he also has a First Amendment right that he shares with us, that's us, the American people, to engage in his campaign speech. And if he's bogged down in a trial, he's not going to be able to speak. Now, given Trump's status as the presumptive Republican nominee and President Biden's chief political rival, a trial this year would also violate the Justice Manual, which applies to the special counsel's office, even though Jack Smith is illegitimate, as we know. And it prohibits actions that may have an impact on the election, as well as there also are other established DOJ norms that former officials described when talking about Hillary Clinton, or someone else. When talking about Hillary, they say, you know, we have a general principle of avoiding interference in the elections. That's what the Office of the Inspector General said. In fact, in November 2020, when Deputy Special Counsel J.P. Cooney and his colleagues back in November, when they were seeking to forestall valid investigations of election fraud that supported Trump's position about the 2020 election, the Deputy Special Counsel sent a letter to Bill Barr. He said, sorry, the DOJ has a longstanding policy of non-interference in elections, so don't investigate election fraud, which he wrote had been in place for decades and protected the institution from the appearance of political partisanship, which of course is all evaporated. Now, Jack Smith, deranged and illegal, and Deputy Special Counsel Cooney and their staff now, they do the opposite. Now, they act with the politically based and calculated support of the Biden administration and Garland, and they seek to rush this case to trial on a schedule without precedent in any other prosecution that involved espionage and CIPA. But nevertheless, of course, Trump's team says, President Trump respects that this court issued an order directing us to submit our proposed schedules. So that's what we're doing now. Now, though recently filed motions that are in process right now that are done to compel disclosures and to dismiss the indictment, they say President Trump seeks to timely vindicate important rights throughout these proceedings, including his motions to dismiss pursuant to the Presidential Records Act and the presidential immunity and selective and vindictive prosecution, for which we're going to still need a bunch of additional disclosures and more fact-finding with evidentiary hearings, right? We're coming back. We want to have hearings on this. Now, in addition, and we read through many of those motions here before, the ones that we have access to, the vindictive prosecution is still not public. In addition, yesterday's order by the Supreme Court that agrees to review the Chutkan's erroneous decision on presidential immunity was also an important step toward the protection of the U.S. Constitution and a fair system of justice that Trump seeks here and elsewhere. The justice's anticipated ruling will give Your Honor some guidance, Judge Cannon, and how you evaluate the motion to dismiss this case based on presidential immunity. And so Trump respectfully submits that all these considerations are relevant as you consider the proposed schedule there in Florida, telling us that as directed, except as shaded in blue for Walt, the proposed dates work for all of us. Now, we reserve the right to ask for adjournments of this if they're not complying with discovery. And so if they're dragging their feet, we reserve the right to continue to postpone this or ask for a postponement. Consistent with the introduction and reiterating the position that a fair trial cannot, they say, be held until after 2024, the proposed schedule does not include a date for a hearing on Trump's motion to dismiss based on immunity, the appointments clause, or the appropriations clause. And so what the defense team is doing here is building in a continuance excuse. So the defendants respectfully request that the court schedule that hearing at a time convenient following the SCOTUS ruling. And so I want to share with you what they did here. You can see how much election stuff is going on. Obviously a lot. March 2nd, we had primaries, Idaho, Michigan, Missouri. Caucuses in D.C., we saw those. North Dakota. Today, of course, is Super Tuesday. We got a bunch of states and the American Samoa. Shout out to all of our viewers in American Samoa. Love you guys. You guys are awesome. Primaries in caucuses are all taking place on the 12th. And then you see they have a bunch of deadlines. They say, how about we have a hearing on these dates for these various deadlines. We got more election stuff coming up. Then we get more election stuff, right? Look at all this election stuff that Trump is now having to do, right? The reason they're pointing this out is by saying Trump has to go do all this. Like he's got to go campaign in Louisiana. There's jury selection that's taking place in New York, March 25th. This is the criminal trial in the Alvin Bragg case. Apparently that's going to be 6 weeks. Puerto Rico, Pennsylvania, Indiana, Maryland. Then we have another deadline in May. Then we got primaries, Kentucky and Oregon. Then we got defense motions are due. And so this is what they're proposing. Continuing work all throughout the summer. Okay, most of those primaries are going to be done. by the end of June. Then all throughout the summer, July, they say, we're going to keep working on this. The Republicans meet July 15th, so the RNC will be there. Then Walt Nauta, he's also scheduled for another 3-week trial. They're prosecuting him. And so Trump is saying if all this keeps happening, then we're going to be ready essentially for trial. Trump says September 9th. So my mistake, it wasn't August, it was September 9th. Trump says we're ready for trial. We're going to begin with jury selection and trial in September. So September, 6 weeks trial, that puts us in October. Elections November. So that's very, very interesting. Okay, this is Trump's team saying, yeah, let's do it. Yeah, we'll have a trial then in September. Now, the government says that they want it on July 8th. And CNN has given us some explanation as to why they think that is happening. And so this is what was happening there on with Anderson when he was asking former federal prosecutor Elie Honig about this.
Bannon is expected to address that there could be from former federal prosecutor Elie Honig and former Nixon White House counsel John Dean. What do you make of this July 8th date?
Well, so that's a really interesting development, that there could be some agreement here between the parties to do a trial in July or August. And if that's the deal, I think I see why each side might be interested in that. It tells me, first of all, that Jack Smith has now concluded that it's very unlikely he's going to get his January 6th trial in. We just saw the Supreme Court take that case yesterday. I think he's done the math and seen that that's essentially a done deal in terms of trying it before the election. This would allow Jack Smith to at least try the Mar-a-Lago case before the election. And from Trump's team perspective, they get the win of moving the January 6th trial till after the election. And it allows them, they would go ahead with the Florida trial, the Mar-a-Lago trial, but you're going to have a good jury there if you're Donald Trump. You're going to have half that jury is going to be Trump supporters, Trump voters. So
there's also questions about the judge that have been.
There
the judge has been
questions.
good for Trump. So I think if
She's been fair, Anderson. Not any questions about
you're
it.
Trump's lawyers, and we've had reporting on this, you're feeling pretty good about your chances in Florida.
The August 12th date, in which they say that could be a fallback option, the Trump team. I mean, how long a trial are we looking at?
This feels to me, and I know the parties put in different requests and estimates. I think Trump's team said 8 to 10 weeks. I think DOJ said 6 to 8 weeks. I think you're looking at a 6 to 8 week trial. I think that's a good estimate. But that would, we're doing the math here. That would take you from August into September into October. We could have a verdict in that scenario really close to Election Day.
John, what do you think?
All right, so that is getting very, very close to the election, and they're trying to squeeze it in. This was Jim Trusty, Donald Trump's former lawyer as well, and he was having a conversation about this over on CNN with Caitlin Collins, and here's what some of that sounded like.
Defense attorneys want want their trial to start in July, want another one to start in August. What do you think this likely ultimately lands based on what Jack Smith wants and what the defense attorneys are arguing?
Yeah, I'm going to go with none of the above. You know, what's happening, I mean, you talk about this judge being, quote, mired in controversy. She's actually taking a very incremental approach to everything when it comes to scheduling. And that's what you normally see in federal court. It's talking to the parties. Where are we on discovery? Where are we on classified documents? You've got 5 motions to dismiss pending right now. You've got 10 DOJ attorneys entering their appearance on the case. Yeah. This is not a quick and simple matter. And so Jack Smith, I think the approach he took was desperate to try something against President Trump before the election, which is really the wrong paradigm for DOJ to take, for Jack and the Attorney General to take. And of course, the other side is saying we can't possibly do this before the election. You know, there's some blame to be had perhaps on both sides for taking kind of extreme positions. But as a former prosecutor 27 years, I can't get over the fact that DOJ is admittedly making this a political exercise. Yeah. They're basically saying we've got to do this before the election. And that's just not what you normally see in a white-collar case for a non-incarcerated defendant. So I think we're going to chug along for another month or two. We might see some really fascinating motions hearings in Florida, I think very important ones. But I suspect that trial's not happening this summer for a variety of reasons.
Well, they're not explicitly saying it's about the election. That's actually, you know, kind of Jack Smith's thing. He has not mentioned the word election in his filings. So when do you think the classified documents case for Trump actually happens?
Well, it depends on a lot of factors that we don't know yet. You know, there's there's, I think, actually very significant motions, not boilerplate type things you routinely file, but really critical ones about the Presidential Records Act.
Yep.
The Trump team wants that litigated in about 2 weeks. And I think even Jack said something about April for that. So that's a huge threshold. I haven't seen a motion relating to the search warrant, but I think that's a very viable issue in this case, which is unusual.
Okay, so there's a lot
some
of
real
things
fundamental
to argue,
stuff,
but
and you've got the.
Where do you guess it could go?
I think if we get past the summer, then the natural reluctance of the court is probably to the benefit of President Trump to say, and look, that used to be a DOJ policy. We don't try to interfere with elections by trying cases or even bringing indictments on the eve of an election. So I think if we get to May and she's not locked in on July or August, and we may know more tomorrow, that if she's not locked in on those dates, then it might slide to 2025. And that's actually kind of a typical process for a classified document, complex white collar case.
Yeah, but I'll note that, I mean, these cases were brought some time ago, and certainly the Trump team has sought to delay them because they believe it's to their benefit.
It is to their benefit, Caitlin. It's called equal protection and the right to investigate and build your defense. Jack Smith has had multiple years to bring these claims, and he brought them all in the middle of an election season. So she does this little scam where she asks a question, but she then refutes their prior point, right? Refute the prior point, then ask another question, and the guest only answers the next question. So Trump attorney Jim Trusty, I think, is on the mark with this. I'm not sure that the classified documents case goes either. And it feels to me that Trump, in his request, is building in some additional justifications for more continuances. And so Jack Smith might end up 0 for 2 on this, right? No trials before the election, which would just be a total pathetic failure, just like is appropriate for him and his office. So interesting stuff. Of course, we're going to keep tabs on what's happening in Florida. We got a lot of great motions that have been filed there and were very juicy. And so we'll have responses and replies and a lot more to come that we will, of course, cover here. So, my friends, thank you for subscribing wherever it is you're watching this. Thanks for joining us and watching thewatchers.locals.com, linked in the description below. It's an amazing members-only community. We do streams in the mornings and on Saturdays. We'd love to have you come and join us because it's a ton of fun. And we'll love to see you there and back here on the next one. All right, my friends, that's it for us on the day. Now it's time to hear from you and to see what you have to say about all of this. Jack scrambling to get a new trial date. 2 new witnesses coming out against Fani and Willis, and 2 very credible, highly credible witnesses. We're going to be here tomorrow, as a reminder, early tomorrow, to talk about the Senate saga in Georgia. And then, of course, Donald Trump warning Alvin Bragg, don't you even think about using Michael Cohen, otherwise you'll be committing misconduct by suborning perjury and committing a new crime. So enjoy. But now, my friends, let us hear from you. Let's see what you have to say about this over on the YouTubes. Oh my gosh, what on earth is happening right now? Our very first one on the day is from Rod. Rod. Good Lord, my friend. Woo! Says, hello, Ronert. Hello, Rod. I'm just joking. Hello, Robert. Awesome channel, man. Keep doing the great work in breaking everything down to be better, to better understand it. Rod, what a generous dono, my friend. Did you accidentally press too many buttons on that one? Really, really generous, Rod. Thank you so much. I'm only teasing, man. Thank you for that. Really extremely generous, man. Thank you so much. We're going to keep on going, my friend. Thank you for coming back here and continuing to join us. What a great the chat. Hey, Ronard, I like it. I kind of like Ronard. I think it kind of fits. Sometimes I make up, words. Ronard's as good as all of them. Call me whatever the hell you want. I don't care. It's all good. What's up, Rod? Thank you for that, man. Really, really generous. Really appreciative of it. I wish I had something, more profound to say, but I really appreciate it. Thank you for the support, man. I hope to see you back here. And I hope you're having a beautiful and an amazing week. And on behalf of everyone here on our channel, we appreciate these big donos, man, because we reinvest this back into what we do here. We have a team now. We got a big vision for what we're doing. So, Rod, thank you on behalf of the entire fam. We're grateful for you, man. Thank you for that. Whew. Ron and Rod. I like it. Ron and Rod and Rob from time to time. Thank you, Rod, very much for that one. Hey, what's up? The Rubos over at rubossaltshop.com. Amazing people with amazing salt. Says, we have done our civic duty. Although it's raining here, people are getting out and voting. Poll volunteers says it's been steady all day. Man, we love our vote. We're exercising our voting muscles so that when November comes, we're just as strong as can be. Dolphin Fan is the man. Bringing in Gas Truckin', 5 Membos, D's coming in. Stephen B, Richard H, DM Walker coming in courtesy of Dolphin Fan is the man on the tubes. Thank you for that, Dolphin. Hey, Dolphin upgraded his membership too, also to a shout-out supporter status. Thank you for that. Hey, Magic Stick, 8 months, 1 month to a baby, says you are the man. Love all you do. Keep up the great work. Thank you, Magic Stick. Membo for 8 months, 1 month away from a baby. Hey, 59 Minutes presents much more succinct than that terrible show called 60 Minutes. Says, hi, Rob. This stuff is addictive. LOL. That's true. It is addictive. It is. You should see me, man. My email sends me a court listener a new filing notification. I'm like, Ma! What got filed? It's like, oh, it's just a notice of an error filed in the wrong jurisdiction. I'm like, oh. So, you know, my RPMs go high to low all day long. That's how it works. 59, we got Freedom Forever says, Georgia judge asked to talk to 2 more witnesses. Did he ask to talk to them? So that might be new. We definitely know that they're out there. I don't know if the judge has agreed to open up evidence yet, but he certainly read those filings because they landed in his court. We got Crisis at the Border says, I've been singing Supercalifragilistic in my mind all day. I hate you. Love ya. Hey, don't blame me. That's Singing Janky Jankowicz. You remember Singing Janky Jankowicz? Remember her? She tried to censor us on the Disinformation Governance Board. Remember that whack job? And she would sing songs all day. Something, something about censoring your booty. Don't read misinformation or it'll make you moody. Something, 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 something. You know, and it was all supercalifragilistic, and she was the worst. Now she's gone, thankfully. Oh, she blocked me too, by the way. Singing Janky Jankowicz. It was hilarious. She blocked me on X preemptively. I've never even interacted with her. Okay, and she blocked me. Maybe she heard us mocking her stupid songs. Flagpole Guy says, hi, everyone. Trump is a dragon slayer. He walks through the fiery pits, slaying evil spirits, knocking them over with the back of his hand, carrying the American flag with the other. Brought to you by usflagpoleguy.com. He does. He does. He does. Scary Poppins. Remember her? Yeah, she was just terrible. Sandy says, this Bragg case is frustrating to me. I still don't know what the felony charge is that tolls the statute of limitations. Bragg gave 2 possibilities. One was federal, which meant he couldn't try the case in state court, and the other was a state crime that was false. Yeah, you're right about that, Sandy. I don't know the answer to that either, honestly. I really don't know. I honestly think that we're going to have to wait until he presents his evidence to get clarity on that, which is crazy. And I think that the theory is something extends the statute because of his mindset. He had intention of... That's a good question, actually. I don't know. I don't know the answer to that. Yeah, we're all waiting to hear what that is. It's a good question. Because this case is old. And what makes them felonies that extends the statute of limitations? I think it was... Yeah, I got to look it up. We got to look that up. It's a great question. Thank you for that, Sandy. Glocky is here. Says something you won't see on the news, but on the other side of the building, someone spray painted pro-Hamas slogans. Wow. And so apparently those are bullet holes. Wow. Drive-bys, not good. Hey, Glocky says, good evening, Rob. So with Trump's lawyers citing the literal New York law in relation to the Cohen testimony, how can Bragg and the judge weasel out of this? Well, they'll just find opposing law. Yeah, they'll just say, no, I mean, it's your duty to cross-examine him. They'll say a judge can't prohibit a witness. Alvin, if he wants to call him, it's up to him. But, it's New York. They can do whatever they want there because they own all the branches of government and probably the bar. So who's going to do anything about this? NY says the Weisselberg conviction should be overturned and Juan Mercan should be taken off Trump's case. Good call. We got Glocky says, happy Super Tuesday, everyone. This is a message brought to you by Nickery. Nickery Helimpton. Nickery Helimpton is the person behind this message. Hey, Truth in Action says the Weisselberg trial, the Fani trial, the trial of the farmer in Pennsylvania, I think the Amos case, whose food they destroyed, Tishy, etc., are really disheartening. The government is super dirty and has way too much power. What is the solution? Can changes be made? Can we clean out the dishonesty? And of course, how? The average American could never withstand it. Well, we got a lot of work to do. But what we're doing right now is we're creating a new social fabric that's going to connect us into a new network state. And as the old fabric of the nation state becomes incompetent, bureaucratic, and it fails and fades away, we're still going to be living together in a community that is stitched together, that does value principles that we hold to be dear to us as Americans. And so that's the solution. You're doing it right now, Truth, by staying engaged and by staying a part of a community. And I know that sounds self-serving, but whether it's our community or another community, they're organizing. They're getting their little communist organizations all organized and getting together and building their own systems. Now, their systems are built on falsehoods and lies, and so their systems are not going to be long for anything, but ours will. That's the solution. Glocky says, the Border Patrol Union just wrecked Joe Biden. And here's a nice link of Joe on the beach or something. Yeah, we'll skip that one. Nobody wants to see that. Glocky says they are literally writing up legislation to sell off your oil reserves and then make it illegal to fill them again. Take what you think you know of how bad these people are, and crank that thought to level 11. Says, can Trump's lawyers or one of their witnesses throw the Bragg trial into a mistrial on purpose, or at least stall the trial? No. I mean, no. Not without getting sanctioned or without getting in trouble. I mean, you can't intentionally cause a mistrial, but if there is a mistrial that happens, then that's a different thing. You got to have a duty of candor to the court, and not work adverse to the court. But if stuff happens, then stuff happens. What's up? Chubby says, at this point, I'd question whether Cohen is even capable of not lying. Does he have children? Wonder if anyone can make a birthday wish for him to stop lying. The dude's crazy, man. And Alvin Bragg's like, he's going to be great. He's our star witness. Put him in. Knox is here. Defense attorney in Texas says, happy Taco Tuesday, all. I heard Cookies Newland, a.k.a. Victoria, is resigning. Could that be for her atrocious handling of Project Ukraine? Yeah, or she's going out and someone else is going to come in to escalate things. State Department's winding down, CIA's winding up, who knows? Flagpole guy says this flag is in celebration of Wade changing his Facebook page to relationship with a lie. Oh, that's a good one, Flagpole guy. That's a good one. I like it. Nice. That's a nice one. That's a nice scene too, right in front of those trees. NY says, Fani is guilty of obstruction of justice. She's going to lose her law license and go to jail. We'll see. That would be a real reversal of fortune, wouldn't it? Truth in Action says, the romantic relationship strikes me as odd. It wasn't good because he was married, but it's their business. To my understanding, it would not have been any better if it were a best friend or relative that was hired the way Wade was. He was unqualified, inappropriately hired, and she personally benefited. Am I wrong? No, I think that would also be problematic. Yeah, if she hired like her kid and was like, yeah, for example, I think Cori Bush is getting into this. Like, she hired her boyfriend or her husband, I think, to be her security and paid him, tens of thousands of dollars a month. So, yeah, it's about a benefit. And, you don't sleep with your family unless you're maybe, Joe Biden or something, but it's not something, it's about the benefit that gets sent over to Fani, and however she gets that, and if it is material, then I think that is a problem either way you splice it. Londo says, stupid lawyers should not be allowed to be prosecutors ever. Seems like that's the most common demographic. Well, they're prosecutors, so they're not really that creative in many ways. It's like, what are they going to go do? They have to go work for the government. What else are they going to do? Go succeed in the private sector? Give me a break. This old guy says they gave Bradley 2 chances and he was too stupid to tell the truth. Yeah, he dug himself into a hole, man. It's like when mom says, I'm going to give you one more chance, and mom knows everything. I'm going to give you one more chance. You should definitely, any 8-year-olds listening here with mom or dad in the room, they know. They know. Don't lie the second time. It makes it much worse. That's from experience, life experience. Roy MC says, even if the judge denies the reopening of the evidence, what would be the position if these latest 2 defendants file a motion themselves to disqualify Wade and Willis, considering they were not part of the first filing? I think they joined them. I think they joined them in the filings, but yeah, I mean, the judge is not going to reconsider it. Like, we're not going to do this again for each co-defendant, if that's what you're asking. Like, we're not going to go through this whole thing and then have another defendant raise it up again. Like, it's been decided, present your evidence or not. Jeffrey Adams says, America First Legal just sued Fani for the White House documents between the DA and the White House. They're awesome, by the way. They're doing a bunch of great work, so check out America First Legal if you haven't already. A lot of great litigation there. Drew M., hey, a membo for 3 months says, do you know Potentially Criminal? He, too, knows of Baofeng. Yeah, heck yeah. Yeah, we know Potentially Criminal here. He's on YouTube, by the way. Does great analysis. I think he's a criminal defense attorney, too. So shout out to Potentially Criminal. Yeah, potentially, but not actually. Shout out to Potentially Criminal. And make sure, if you're looking for some other legal analysis, that's where to go. One of the places, many other great channels, of course, Potentially Criminal, amongst the best. 59 minutes, 1 minute shorter than 60 minutes. Says, do you think Fani will face perjury charges? Probably not. If I had to shoot from the hip on that, I'd say probably not. She'll probably get disqualified and they'll leave it at that. Charging her with a crime, it's like prosecutors, it's like kind of like the blue code of silence, It's like how cops don't give other cops speeding tickets a lot of the time. It's like, is another prosecutor going to prosecute a prosecutor? I don't know. I have my doubts about it. Sheila says, hope they disbar all 3 of them. That absolutely should be done, right? And they should be charged with perjury, in my opinion. If they charge Trump's co-defendants on the most ridiculous garbage you've ever seen. Their crimes are dramatically worse. None of Trump's co-defendants lied to the court to their faces. Mark Butchers here says, I sure hope they open up the evidence. That would be a lot of fun. We'd love to hear those people testify. I don't know the judge is going to do that. I think the judge will just, I've heard enough already. This horse is already dead. They're dead. They're dead. All right, I understand. Sandy says, Cohen's allocution included him confessing to a crime that implicated Trump. That was not a crime. But it sure looked good on TV for the day. That was the money shot that they wanted. Yeah, it was. And they don't care about the truth. They'll bring in one of the most obvious liars in the whole country. He has been convicted for it and lied to Congress, lied to the judge, lied about lying to the judge. And that's their star witness. It's absolutely crazy. Sandy says, great letter from the Trump attorney warning Bragg don't commit a crime. Says Trump has stated he plans to form a task force to investigate rogue prosecutors when he retakes office. Good. He will clearly win based on the current mood and the movement of the country. I sure hope so, man. We're not counting our eggs until they hatch. But it's certainly looking good, and Joe Biden's looking worse every day. Dove7 says, thanks, London. Thanks, London. Shout out to our friends in the UK. Don Goff says, no commercials so far tonight. I'm doing my part. Thank you for that, Don. That's good. So you're not getting any of the usual YouTube interstitials, I think they're called. Generic Derek says, in every direction, Bidens are corrupt. Love from the UK. Shout out to our friends in the UK. Love you guys. Says here, Paul Sperry says, the White House doctor gave was an original advisor to his brother in his AmeriCorps hospital scam. Wow. So, okay, so the White House doctor is invested in some of the Biden crimes. No wonder he is covering for them. Sandy says, hey, Rob, what's the difference between compensatory versus punitive as relates to who gets paid? What's the difference between retribution versus retaliation, revenge? What's the difference between an insurrectionist and a person exercising their constitutional duty to throw off the government that has become so corrupt as to no longer work for the people? All rhetorical questions meant to set the stage of thought. Yeah, it's a great question. It's a matter of degree. I would say it's a matter of discretion, certain indicia for each different category. But ultimately, a lot of it comes down to personal discretion. And that's why we're seeing a lot of prosecutors take a lot of action that they wouldn't have taken originally. A lot of other prosecutors before Alvin, before Fani, before Jack, all thought it was nuts. In fact, we had 234 years of history that supports that. No one else thought of it. But times have changed. Contexts have changed. The people in those positions have changed. Their belief in the Constitution has changed. And so the whole structure of our justice system is changing rapidly, and it's disgusting. JMZ is our newest supporter on the YouTube. Is going to get those morning streams. We'll see you tomorrow. Actually, tomorrow morning is going to be for everyone because, of course, we're covering the Fani stuff. But we'll see you on the morning streams when we're back at those. Ike's Girl says, my 18-year-old granddaughter is voting Trump and not Biden. Shout out to Ike's Girl's granddaughter. Making a smart decision. Smart young woman. Scraith is our newest supporter. Welcome aboard, Scraith. Very nice to have you. And Truthfinder on Locals tells us that Senator Kristen Sinema has announced she's not seeking re-election in Arizona. She does not want to go down with a sinking ship. Now the advantage goes to Kari Lake. And that's good news. Yeah, I think that is ultimately a win for Kari Lake because she was probably the biggest threat to her. Now it's going to be kind of open season. And so with the mood and the trajectory of the country, we might be looking at a Kari Lake. Very nice. Hey, this was an article from Knox. This article tells us that Fani Willis judge promised to help rehab defendants. Interesting. True justice isn't about locking people up and throwing away the key. That sounds like a good article from Scott McAfee. That's true, actually. I mean, a part of the reason the justice system, I think, is very broken is because it's very mechanical. They just put people through the sausage factory and they come out the other end, you know, not looking like a sausage, like looking much worse. It's not good. And the goal is we want to help people not reoffend. We don't want to, it's hard to punish the pain out of people. And people are already in a position of pain and we punish them. They come out worse. So how does that help society at all? It doesn't. Sandy says, many Americans see how corrupted our institutions are. We cannot end the institutional corruption without having something ready to stand up in its place. You are the solution, so get ready to participate in your community. 100%. 100%. I know oftentimes it feels like it's deflating or things are, you know, not going the right direction. But honestly, I think that it's just this natural process we're going through. It's almost like we have to watch our government and all these incompetent losers fail on their faces. We have to watch them fall on their faces. And in that process, we are going to discover how to actually be free because they have been the jailers who've been keeping us all locked down, locked away in Plato's cave. And we're now starting to see the truth. And emerging from Plato's cave into the real world is a difficult process. And when you go back into Plato's cave, one of the parts of the allegory is when you tell other people, hey, wake up, they're going to tell you to get out of here. They don't like that sunshine and that sunlight. They'd rather just watch the shadows on the wall. And so leave them alone. And guess what? We do. We leave them alone. If they want to be there, we can't save everyone, but we can save the people who are interested in saving themselves. And that's why we're building our community and creating energy around these issues that matter. And I think it's going to be a successful journey. It worked for the founding fathers. It's going to work for us. Truth is here. It says, hi, Rob. Check out what Florida is considering. The legislature is considering allowing satanic priests to be volunteer chaplains. Oh, that's great. This needs to be put down immediately in Florida. What the heck is that? All right. Thanks for raising that up, Truthfinder, and for flagging that for us. My friends, thank you for those incredible and amazing donos. Extremely generous of you. And one more time, I want to thank Ron and Rod for supporting us with that very monstrous, nice dono at the outset. Thank you for that, Rod. And let's see who's joining us on the X platform. Of course, we are going to wrap it up here and then go over to watchingthewatchers.locals.com. And who's joining us over there? Oh, what happened to X? X doesn't show us how many are live now anymore. Look, they just say how many views. Oh, man. That's a weird thing. All right, well, what can you do about that? All right, so let's see. We got Palmino's in the house. Danny McWilliams was in the house. We got, hey, this one from Vientikis. Here's one from Branko. This is called a SCOTUS bench slap. Remove Trump from the ballot. The Democrats got the old backhand right in the mouth. Hey, Kat Ryan's here. Fred Petamonte says, whoa, July 8th is Fred's birthday. Can you cover the P. Diddy case? We're probably not going to cover that Anubis because it's not a prosecutor or a police officer or an FBI agent or a law enforcement official or a politician, which is where we kind of try to keep in the zone. So, but the P. Diddy case is wild. I've heard some comments about it. Apparently, those dudes were into some wild stuff. UNC Tar Heel fan says, Gouveia is such a happy warrior. Love his clear explanations laced with humor. We try. I'm glad you find it funny. I mean, I do, but it's just me here. So I don't know if, I'm just yucking it up myself after the, So thanks for the confirmation. And my friends, thanks for joining us on X at Rob Gouveia ESQ. Also, it's a great way to follow other watchers out there in the wild. So you see people commenting, follow them, like their comments, follow their comments, retweet their stuff. That's how we're all going to stay connected out there in the wilderness on X. But that, my friends, is it for us on the day. We had a couple other donos come in before we wrap it up. Raymond Loera says, what was on the menu for Taco Tuesday? I missed it this morning. Oh, yeah. That was Tanya Karras, who is, of course, always very supportive on Taco Tuesday. I think it was tater casserole. I think it was tater tot casserole, if I remember right, from this morning. It was a good one. Yeah, like tater tot casserole. And I think also like with a side of mashed potatoes or something. It was like great. And yeah, it was good. So you missed a good one. 17 months, Raymond. Oh my goodness. That is amazing. Thank you for being here for 17 months, man. Almost 2 full babies in the house. Incredible. Wow. Thank you, Raymond, for sending that one in. And my friends, we also had this one from Joe. Joe Sapp is here. Says, what's up? Says, Sinema dropping out hurts Lake. It consolidates the field and it makes it harder for the Republican nominee. Oh, Lake will still probably win, but she needs to be laser focused. Interesting. Well, okay, I see what you're saying. So maybe, so I think what happened ultimately was Sinema probably thought that she couldn't win the Democratic primary, right? So the Democrats will consolidate, and you're saying that Sinema won't maybe split that all the way in the run up to the general. Yeah, I can see that. Although it's pretty late. She's getting out pretty late. We'll see. We're going to be pulling hard for Kari Lake, obviously, and we're excited for that one. Thank you, Joe. This one from Warrior Heart says, anybody notice that Facebook and Google had issues today, along with several others? Is it a coinky-dink that it's also Super Tuesday? Who knows? Yeah, who knows? Gearing us up. They're exercising their rigging and fraud. We're all exercising our voting muscles on Super Tuesday. They're like, how do we, let's exercise our fraud muscles. They're like, oh yeah, perfect. Fraud. Getting warmed up for that. Internet goes down right now. Yeah, not a surprise. Hey, Fred Pedamonte says his dog Johnny said, Johnny just told me. He's like, dude, Epstein's still alive. It's probably true from Fred Pedamonte. I think it's probably an accurate statement. We got this one from R. Alvi says, hello from the Philippines. Shout out to our friends in the Philippines. Absolutely great to have you here. And thank you for sending in the amazing dono over there. And I think that, my friends, is it for us on the day. Let me make sure I didn't miss anybody before we wrap it up. And our friends in the Philippines, man, this is going global. And it's very awesome. Shout out to our friends in the Philippines. Okay, my friends, that is it for us on the day. And so we are going over to watchingthewatchers.locals.com. We're going to hang out and debrief a bit over there. We also do streams in the morning and on Saturday. Tomorrow morning, we're going to be starting very early, my time, so about 6:30, 6:45 Mountain Time. Pacific, a little earlier than that. The hearing in Georgia starts at 9 a.m. Eastern Time. We'll be live right before that starts, and we're going to be covering it, and it should be a doozy. So come and join us. Of course, we also have robertgouveia.com for any of our PDFs. We also have our daily newsletter there. So every day after the show, if you're on our newsletter list, you're going to get a summary of the show, all the segments where you can link over, watch them on Rumble. And it's a great way to forward the show, forward the content to a friend or family member. When you see the segment come in, you're like, I got to send that to someone. Just hit that forward it on to them. And it's a great way to help our show reach new people and spread the message around. We've also got some great stuff happening at watcherlodge.com. More coming soon. We got some very cool stuff happening soon. And so come check that out, watcherlodge.com. if you want to join in on some of that fun. Before we wrap it up, want to thank our mods and our meme smiths for modding down the fort, keeping things nice and orderly around here. Our friends Vianticus Prime, K-Beans in the house, Just Cause. We got Playin' Hooky, Ronnie Cole, our friend Zulu, Beyond Geo, Zach Nichols, John Allen, Janek, Dog Digger, and Donut Mind Me, all modding the fort down for us. Thank you for all of your tremendous help. Sleepy Dog Lee, over on the X, Nathan N810, and Geegum Geegum, all meme smithing it up for us. And of course, we're grateful to everybody who keeps this train on the track. But my friends, that is it for us on the day. We're heading over to watchingthewatchers.locals.com. We'd love to see you there, but if not, that's all right. We are going to be back here tomorrow. It's going to be early, and so we hope to see you right back here so that together, with your help, we can shine that big, beautiful spotlight of accountability and transparency down upon our system with the hope of finding justice. Make it a beautiful night, my friends. Sleep very well. I'll see you right back here tomorrow. Bye-bye.